Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. My name is Taylor, and right next to me here is sweet baby Avery, and today's video is going to be all about her and my birth experience. So she is sleeping on her boppy, so if you hear little like grunts or anything, that is her. But my birth did not go as, I wouldn't say planned, because I didn't really have a birth plan, because I didn't want to be let down if it didn't go as planned, but it definitely was not what anyone was expecting. So I'm just gonna go ahead and jump right on into it because it's a crazy story, and it definitely, it's crazy. So to begin with, she was born on July 17th, which was Friday. So Thursday night I was having irregular contractions, nothing that was really too alarming, just, you know, normal like Braxton Hicks, but they were more painful. I didn't think anything of them because I had been having contractions or Braxton Hicks that same exact way. I would get them when we would lay down to go to sleep at night, and then the next morning they would be gone. So I didn't really think too much of it. So I go to bed Thursday night, and then I wake up Friday morning. Garrett gets up and goes to work. He leaves the house at 7. So normally I would stay up after he leaves, just because once I'm up, I can't really go back to sleep. So that's normally the case. But on this particular day, that did not happen. I actually ended up going back to sleep, I think, until almost like 10 o'clock that morning, which is not like me at all. I'm normally up at the latest like 9 because there's things I need to get done around the house, and it's just, I don't like to, I guess, like sleep my entire day away. So this particular morning, like I said, I was sleeping until like 10. And when I finally got up and started moving around, I was having these contractions again. So I started timing them. If my contraction app still has them saved, I will screenshot it and put it in the video, but if not, then it won't be there. So I started timing them. They were pretty far apart in the beginning just because it was the beginning. And mind you, at my appointment that I had that earlier that week, I had got my membrane swept, and I was already, I think, a tight 3 centimeters dilated. So I was already dilated, my membranes got swept. So me thinking, you know, I'm a first time mom, it's going to be a slow process, I'm going to be in early labor for a really long time, so I didn't think much of it. I just kind of went about my day. And then around, I would say, noon to 1-ish is when they started getting more frequent. Now, I remember I was sitting on the couch eating lunch, and they were getting pretty painful to the point where I would kind of have to like stop and like concentrate on them, and then once it was over, it was over. But at that point, they weren't lasting very long. It was maybe 15 to 20 seconds at the longest. That's how long they were lasting. So I was still like, you know what, I'm in early labor, no need to have Garrett come home, no need to, you know, start running around grabbing bags and stuff like that. I've got a while. So then maybe another hour passes by, and they're getting more and more consistent and lasting longer. So at this point, I would say they were anywhere from 30 seconds to 45 seconds long, and they were probably between 7 and 10 minutes apart. So they were getting more frequent, but not the like 511 or 411 rule. So at this point, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna take a shower just in case. I had told myself that I wanted to take a shower before we went to the hospital from the beginning. So that's what I did. I went and I got in the shower, the water definitely, I wouldn't say subsided them, but it definitely made them more bearable. So the water was helping. I stayed in there for quite a while because it was making me more comfortable. And then when I got out, I was struggling to get dressed because of how much pain I was in. So because of, you know, everything going on in the world, my office wanted you to call before going into the hospital. So at this point, I was texting Garrett, telling him, like, you know, they're getting more and more consistent. I'm not really too sure what I should do. He works in like a shop. He's a diesel mechanic, so he works in a shop, but they were out working on a boat, so he wasn't at the shop. And I remember texting him and saying, if you were at the shop, I would have you come home. And I think that was around maybe 3 o'clock. So he works about 45 minutes away from where we live, and we are an hour away from the hospital. So he texted me saying, we're actually headed back to the shop now. I'll leave when I get there. So he normally gets off at 4:30. They got back to the shop, I think it was around 3:30. So he left an hour early. He got home. Before he got home though, I had told him that I was going to call the doctor on call, the midwife, whoever it was. I was just gonna call and let them know what was going on. So throughout my pregnancy, there's this one particular midwife that I'm not going to name any names. I'm not going to say where I go or anything like that, just because I don't want to throw that practice under the bus, throw this midwife under the bus. But let's just say that I did not enjoy her. I did not like her. She wasn't my cup of tea. And I had told Garrett when I saw her at one of my OB appointments, like earlier on, that I hoped she wasn't the one who was on call when I went into labor. And let's just say that I jinxed myself. So I call the office, let them know what's going on. They transfer me over to one of the nurses in the triage. I tell her what's going on. She says that she's gonna get in contact with the midwife on call and have her call me. So about, I would say maybe like 10 to 15 minutes go by and I get a call from the midwife, who I definitely do not enjoy. And, you know, she's asking me how close are they, blah, 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 blah. At this point, I would say they were around 5 to 7 minutes apart. And lasting still that 30 to 45 seconds. So they weren't a full minute yet, but they were getting to be closer together. So she says, oh, you know, well, we really want you to be having contractions that are 3 minutes apart before we have you come into the hospital. And at this point, I'm like, well, we live an hour away. I'm not waiting that long. Like, I was 3 centimeters dilated at my last appointment. I'm GBS positive. I'm not waiting that long to leave my house to come to the hospital. That's just not going to happen. So she told me that I needed to give it an hour, try to take a nap, and she was going to call me back in an hour and see what was going on. Mind you, my contractions were already 30 to 45 seconds long and about 5 to 7 minutes apart. And we live an hour away. Now, I understand I'm a first-time mom, but the fact that I was GBS positive really concerned me. And the fact that I told her it concerned me and she was like, oh, it's nothing to worry about. Like, you'll be fine. You'll come in and we'll get you treated for it. You need to wait. I'll call you back in an hour. Well, let's just say, long story short, I was right, and me being concerned about being GBS positive and waiting an hour for her to call me back was a terrible idea. And here's why. When she called me back, they were 4 to 5 minutes apart and lasting for a minute or longer. So at this point, she still keeps telling me, oh, well, I think you're in early labor. Oh, well, you just need to wait. It's gonna be okay. And I told her, I'm not waiting. We live an hour away. It's just, I'm not waiting. Like, I'm coming in. So she wasn't very happy. I could tell that she basically was telling me to wait, probably because she didn't want to come into the hospital. But I mean, it's your job. Like, that's what you signed up for. So at this point, We are loading the truck up with the bags. We're getting the car seat in the car. We took our dog to the hospital with us and had Garrett's parents meet us there to get the dog so that they could watch her while we were at the hospital. So at this point, we are in the truck on the way there, and I'm having contractions so bad that I don't even remember the car ride there. All I remember is holding on to the like little thing that is in trucks, the thing that you like grab to like pull yourself up into the truck when you're like getting into the car. So I was holding on to that, and I had my hand like on the center console, and I was just had my eyes closed, and I was just like focusing on the contractions. And that's how I was for literally the entire hour ride there. So I was just focusing on the contractions. We got there. They got me a wheelchair, got me wheeled up to labor and delivery. And at this point, when I got there, the midwife still wasn't there. She was nowhere to be seen. On the phone, she said she would see me there. She was gonna meet us there, whatever. So we get there, and they put us into like a triage room. Now at this point, you know, they start taking like all of your information, going over your chart, stuff like that, trying to get you hooked up to the IV. They check you for dilation. When they checked me, I was a 5 centimeters dilated. Now we got there, I want to say around 6:30 p.m. on July 17th. So I was 5 centimeters at 6:30. Now they try getting me hooked up to the IV because they know I'm GBS positive. I've always had issues with getting my blood drawn, getting hooked up to IVs. My veins are very small and they don't like to cooperate. They like to roll around a lot. So a lot of nurses have troubles getting the needle into my vein without it like infiltrating, or whatever the word is, without rolling my veins. Now I still have bruises on my hands. I don't know if you guys can see that. And then they're also on this hand from where they poked me so many times to try to get the IV in my arm. I remember looking down at my hand at one point, and it was completely covered in blood. The nurse's pants had my blood all over them. The floor had blood all over it. It was a mess. I kid you not. I probably want to say that 4 people were poking me trying to get the IV into my arm. Meanwhile, I'm in the middle of having these painful contractions, and I have no epidural because you have to get an IV with fluid in before you can get an epidural. I have no pain meds because I'm not hooked up to an IV to get them through my IV. So I'm doing all of this completely natural while they're poking me with needles all over my arms, all over, you know, like the insides of your arms. And I'm like continuing to have contractions closer and closer and closer together. Now the midwife finally comes in after we've been there for I don't even know how long. And the nurse that's in the triage room with me trying to get the needle in my vein tells her, I need you to check her again because her contractions are closer together than they were when she got here, like significantly closer together. So the midwife says like, okay, well, I have to go run and go do something real quick. I'll be back to check her. She goes and she's gone for I don't know how long. I was in so much pain. The timeline is like completely gone out of my head. All I know is like when we got there, when I started pushing, and when she was born. But basically the midwife went and did whatever she wanted to do and wasn't worried about me because I'm a first-time mom and I'm in early labor. I'm not in early labor anymore when I'm 5 centimeters and my contractions literally feel like they're consistent constantly and don't ever go away. That's not early labor. Anyway, this woman makes me so mad, and I literally like, I should probably write a review about her because she's not like, I've had other issues with her too, like in the past, but that's whatever. Back to the story. So at that point, the nurse was like, okay, we're not waiting for her anymore. I'll check you myself. So she checks me, and I was 8 centimeters dilated, still in the triage room with no epidural, no anything. They didn't even have a room available for me, like a labor and delivery room. So I was in the triage room still with no IV hooked up. So they were still fighting to get the IV in my arm. Finally, one other nurse comes in, she gets the IV in my arm, and I guess a room had opened up at that point, because the next thing I knew, they were wheeling me down the hall and getting me into a labor and delivery room. So once we got in there, the only thing that I was getting through my IV at that point was the fluids. And they were trying to get the stuff hooked up for my GBS when we got into the labor and delivery room. And at that point I said, I can't do this anymore, I have to push. And they were all like, no, don't push, don't push, don't push. We have to go get the midwife. So at this point the midwife was coming in. I remember seeing her putting her like blue gown on, or blue whatever it is that they wear. And then I remember her standing at the bottom of the bed, like at the foot of the bed, telling me that I needed to, I was on my side. She wanted me to lift my legs up and like push that way on my side, which I thought was weird. And all of the labor and delivery videos I watched before going into labor, they had them on their back, and like the nurses were holding up their legs. They weren't holding up their own legs. I don't know. But so at that point, I was pushing. Like I said, completely natural, no epidural, no medicine, literally as natural as it could be. I wasn't even getting saline through an IV, because while I was pushing, the vein that they had put the IV in, which was in my like crease of my elbow, had come out of my vein and like infiltrated basically. So the fluid was going into my arm, not my vein, and I didn't see it because I wasn't paying attention. I was in so much pain through the contractions that Garrett literally told me afterward my arm looked like there was a baseball underneath of it, because that's how much it was filling up with fluid, and no one was noticing. And then finally the midwife noticed, pointed it out, and one of the nurses went over and like snatched the needle out of my arm. So at this point I wasn't hooked up to anything, and I was pushing. Now I got there at 6:30. They checked me. I was at 5 centimeters. They checked me again, I don't know how much longer later, and I was 8 centimeters. But the thing is, I was in the labor and delivery room pushing. I remember looking up at the clock and it being 9:30 p.m. So I went from a 5 to it's time to push 10 centimeters within 3 hours of being at the hospital. And this woman wanted me to labor at home longer before coming in. So I didn't get treated for GBS, which ended up having to make us stay there longer than 24 hours. We had to stay for 48 hours. And I had to do it completely natural and unmedicated, which I think it happened for a reason, because that was my plan all along, was I wanted to do it naturally without an epidural. And so I think maybe it happened for a reason, but I think that how it happened was completely ridiculous, but whatever. So at 9:30 I was pushing, and she was born at 9:54 p.m. on July 17th. So I pushed for 24 minutes and she was out. She was here. Now I didn't tear at all, no tears, no nothing. I got very lucky with that. I really thought I was going to tear, but I'm pretty blessed and thankful that I didn't, because I don't know if I would have wanted that midwife to stitch me up, honestly. Like, I really don't know. But yeah, that's pretty much my like crazy, traumatic, scary birth story. That in the moment I was traumatized. In the moment I just wanted the pain to go away. But looking back now at her and how sweet she is, I would do it all over again in a heartbeat without the epidural. I would do the exact same thing that happened all over again, because she's totally worth it. And it was a crazy experience, but it was, I don't know, it was just insane. So after she was born, her and I did skin to skin and breastfeeding for, you know, that first initial period of time. And then the nursery came in at around like 11:15 p.m. to weigh her and measure her head and all of that good stuff. So when she was born, she weighed 7 pounds and 10 ounces, which is crazy to believe because I feel like I didn't really have that big of a bump. And she was 20 3/4 inches long. So yeah, that is my crazy birth experience, crazy birth story. If there's anything that you want to share with me about your experience, then go ahead and leave it in the comments down below. I think my experience was a pretty unique one, and I think that it's a story that I will literally remember every detail of for the rest of my life, just because it was the birth of my beautiful Avery, but also because of the way that things transpired. But that is going to be it for today's video. I just wanted to kind of come on here and clarify the labor video because it was kind of all over the place, choppy, but maybe now hearing the story you'll understand why. We were in literally so much, like, there was just so much going on that there was no time to film, and also the midwife wasn't a huge fan of the camera. So thank you, midwife, for ruining my labor and delivery video, and thank you for almost having me deliver my baby in the car because you didn't want me to come in. But I trusted my instincts and did what I thought needed to be done, and I'm glad I did because it was the right decision. But that's gonna be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a comment down below and thumbs up this video. It really helps my channel to grow. And go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all of the videos that I have coming in the near future. And once again, thanks for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.